Hi, I'm Kristen Michelson. I'm an assistant professor in French and Applied Linguistics at Texas Tech University. Today I'm here to tell you about an article appearing in Foreign Language Annals in summer 2019 that reports on findings from a redesigned curriculum for fourth semester French using a global simulation framework. There's been quite a bit of scholarship, both conceptual work, empirical work, in the last several decades that have pointed to the importance of teaching foreign languages as socioculturally situated practices that take into account the subjectivities of learners as they engage in meaning making. This scholarship is expansive and falls under many rubrics, but the tradition that I'm working within is the multiliteracies pedagogies, where language and literacy development can occur through text-centered curricula and critical reflection on language and semiotic choices in processes of interpretation and production. However, much foreign language teaching continues to be anchored in explicit instruction of language forms, isolated from their sociocultural contexts of use. Culture is often bracketed in the margins of classroom instruction and textbook pages, and largely taught as isolated facts or reserved for the upper-level classroom where it is taught primarily through literature. This really ignores so much about the reality of our communication landscapes. So this work attempts to tackle the challenge of how we can more effectively design foreign language instruction to more closely mirror real-world practices of using and appropriating language based on our identities, relationships, cultures, values. So my colleagues and I redesigned an intermediate French course to be a global simulation. And I'd like to acknowledge Béatrice Dupuis and Elise Petit, with whom I co-designed this curriculum. A global simulation is an experiential learning framework in which learners adopt specific character roles in a specified, imagined, yet realistic context, and in which they collaborate to enact a story or complete a project. Some typical features of a global simulation are a small community, where the characters would likely know each other and where there are clearly identifiable roles. Resources for familiarizing learners with the social conventions and communication conventions of the community, and an overarching storyline or project. The global in global simulation describes a comprehensive project suggesting that the situational context is sustained and that we're not just dealing with brief, isolated role-play sequences. Many previous projects have included simulated contexts such as a hotel, a museum, a village, etc. One of the more commonly used simulated contexts is the apartment building. This is what we used for our project. We determined the simulation context to be the 17th District of Paris and then gathered resources, authentic cultural texts, that would help familiarize students with various discourses of contemporary France. We built the curriculum around modules that would help students progress from private or primary to public or secondary discourses, and we selected texts of different genres in which language forms would vary based on both genre conventions as well as the identities and audiences of the text's designers. The texts provided a backdrop for students to narrate their characters' identities and stories, but also served as textual models for students in their own appropriation of forms of discourse befitting their characters and genre conventions. As a way to get students to engage with these texts, we used the heuristic of the 4 curricular components from the New London group. These components, which have since been renamed by Cope and Calancis, involve interpretive and productive engagement with texts and metacognitive reflections on how meaning is made. One very important component of a pedagogy of multiliteracies is that communication is theorized as a process or processes of designing meanings. In this paradigm, design consists of the linguistic and semiotic resources available to learners, available designs, the act of selecting and repurposing material forms of communication in order to create specific meanings, redesigning, and the newly made sign, the redesigned. So reading, listening, speaking, writing, composing multimodal digital texts all involve designing. Mapping a pedagogy of multiliteracies onto a global simulation framework thus foregrounds learners' designs and meaning making. It's not just what the characters do or think, but also about how they choose to speak and to write their characters into being, and how others choose to respond to them. So the intention behind this fusion of curricular frameworks was to foster conscious awareness of the communication and design choices made by students, and then to also eliminate the diversity of ways in which individuals might choose to express meanings around a given topic. The current study is part of a series of studies on this curriculum. In the current study, I investigate learners' specific linguistic designs in their textual productions in order to determine their sensitivity to the socially situated nature of language use. Specifically, I'm looking at how did the adoption of characters with distinct social identities mediate students' linguistic designs, and to what extent did genre conventions mediate linguistic designs across the characters in their transformed practice literacy tasks? Students chose their characters at the beginning of the semester from a set of constraints such as age range, employment sector, gender, marital status, and developed these same characters throughout the semester within their imagined apartment building. These are the characters of the participants in this study. In this article, in the summer 2019 issue of Foreign Language Annals, you can read about the way in which some of the students' linguistic designs very clearly indexed the socially situated character they said they were trying to perform, and see excerpts from genres they produced. In some cases, these very much approximated the genre conventions of the text that we worked with and also befit the characters themselves. In others, students' design choices did not enact the particular identities they said they were performing, nor did they approximate the genre conventions as clearly as others. However, in the article, you can read about how students did this, what they said about their performances, why some of the students perhaps did not, and what we can do going forward. So I hope that you will enjoy reading about the pedagogical possibilities of a multiliteracies-based, genre-based global simulation curriculum, and that it will give you some ideas for teaching language and cultural activity as situated discursive practices in which students have opportunities to design meanings that they see fit for a particular social situation and which account for their identities, interlocutors, and values. Thank you.